Do you know any difficult people? Who's the most difficult person in your life? Hold that thought and I'll tell you about a difficult person I encountered. Let me take you back a few years. I was still wet behind the ears, fresh out of school, in my first job. I'd just written my first proposal, and I thought it was the best work I'd ever done. There was only one problem. It had to be approved by Tom. So I had a meeting with Tom in his office, and if you'd been sitting beside me that day in his office, you'd have smelled stale cigar smoke. You'd have seen the few glistening strands of hair on the top of his head. You'd have seen him curl his lip as he took my proposal and he threw it on the ground and said, "Boss, how dare you bring this piece of junk? Who do you think you are? How can you possibly bring this to me? Why did they hire you anyway? Get out of here." Have you ever felt like you've been punched in the gut? Have you ever felt so deflated, so drained of energy, that you didn't know what to do? What's with this guy? He was so difficult. At that moment, he was the most difficult person in my life. What could I do? And then my friend Mary told me about a woman named Selwa. Says, "You've got to meet Selwa. She can help you with this." Now, if you'd seen Selwa the day that I met her, you'd have seen her wheel up on her wheelchair. You'd have seen her impeccably dressed from toe to head. You'd have seen the strands of pearls and beads around her neck. You'd have seen her perfectly coiffed hair and her perfect makeup. But most importantly, you would have seen her eyes, which were the most compassionate that I'd ever seen. I said, "Selwa, you've got to help me with this guy. He is the most difficult person. How do you deal with difficult people?" And she looked at me and she shook her head slightly and said, "Arnie, there are no difficult people in this world." "What do you mean, no difficult people? You don't know Tom." "There are no difficult people, Arnie. There are only people who are in pain." "Well, what am I supposed to do?" "You're supposed to hear their pain." "Hear their pain? I've got enough pain as it is. Why do I need more of his?" No. Don't take it on. Hear it, validate it. Remember Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. He's not the most difficult person in your life right now. Hear what his pain is, and you'll be amazed at what the results. I found that hard to believe. So I went back. I arranged another meeting with Tom. I said, "Tom, I'd like to talk to you about this proposal." "What, you mean that piece of junk?" I said, "So you've never seen anything like this before. You have absolutely no idea what to do with this." "Well, you know, when I was about your age, I had something kind of similar. But my supervisor, he set me straight. He told me how stupid that was." That must have felt really bad, didn't it? "Yeah, that kind of sucked, yeah." "So Tom, you don't see any way that your ideas could be incorporated into this proposal?" "Oh, I don't know. I think maybe if we take some of this and some of that." And wouldn't you know it, that by the end, he stopped being a difficult person, and that proposal was successful. I stopped taking it personally. I realized that he wasn't difficult, that he was actually in pain himself, that Selwa was right. She was right all along. That there are no difficult people. That Tom wasn't the most difficult person in my life. It was really someone else. The one who had to change was not him. As long as I had to stop taking it personally. I learned that day what Selwa taught me, which was the most difficult person in my life was not the one who it seemed to be, but he was the guy staring back at me every morning in the mirror. So can you quit taking it personally? Can you learn to understand that there are no difficult people? The person you think is difficult is just in pain. So who's the most difficult person in your life, Mr. Toastmaster?